So, Season 1 Reloaded of Warzone just released, and it might just be the worst Warzone update of all time. This update promised us the new contracts, multiplayer ranked, MTZ, interceptor nerfs, among other balance changes, as well as quality of life changes, map updates, a lot of bug fixes, including some fixes to audio, and that all sounds well and good, but what we actually ended up getting is nothing short of a disaster. I played for a few hours last night, and this is every single bug that I encountered. Firstly, we have the fetch and online profile loop. For some players, this basically just meant that you couldn't even get on the game. As soon as you loaded the game, you'll be met with a message that says fetch an online profile, and then that will cause your screen to just start flashing constantly. You won't ever be able to get past this menu. You can try restarting a few times, but that's pretty much it for you. Then loadout drops just simply do not work. If you were to pick up a loadout drop in game, your game will go down to 4 FPS and you'll have to restart. You can see here in this clip from Tim the Tapman, it doesn't really look very fun. Can't even go to the create a class menu and edit your loadout, or it'll just kick you off. And some players just have no perks at all on their loadout. There's also random mountains that's appeared on the map as if there's been like a major earthquake, and these aren't actually visual, by the way. These are actually real terrain that you can walk on, jump on and climb up. They added 2 new weapons, and one of them is the HRM9 SMG, I believe it's called, and you can't actually unlock it due to a bug. It'll say that the sector's been locked no matter what, and the challenges just will not track. They did release another weapon, which is the TAC Evolver LMG, which is possible to unlock, well done. But a couple of the challenges don't track for some reason, so you won't be able to unlock any of the mastery camos on that. I personally was struggling with a double kill challenge. I did it about, I'd say I got about 30 double kills, and it tracked a grand total of 0. Don't worry, there's a lot more still. The new contract, which they promised to release, they did actually release, but it got disabled around the time users got the 5th win. I believe FIFA Kill and the boys were on their 5th win at the time when it got disabled, because Raven decided that this is not actually a good time to release it. As you can probably tell, people weren't so happy with this one. Multiplayer ranked player was delayed inevitably. This is the number one thing that I was looking forward to in this update. Nobody now knows what the new release date is going to be, because Sledgehammer just stated that they found a critical issue in testing and it's going to be pushed back to a later date. They never gave an exact time frame. I don't know if we're talking days, weeks or months, but all we know is it's just delayed. The events tab does not work. This was the very first thing that they ended up fixing. This took them a few hours, I would say. And last but not least, there was no nerf to the MTZ Interceptor. It was pretty much the only thing people were asking for, just nerf the MTZ Interceptor. They've done it twice already, and both times, they haven't really gone hard enough. It needed much bigger of a nerf than what it actually got, and they decided that they're not even going to nerf it in this patch, they're going to do it in a later patch. To add to this, they also didn't even nerf the WSP Swarm, which I think quite a lot of people were looking forward to. The WSP Swarm has been the best SMG in the game for quite some time now. In fact, actually since release, and you'd have assumed it was probably time for it to go. But nope, they've decided to push this back to a later date. They have released some balance changes, but they've left these 2 guns out. They have nerfed a bunch of the LMGs, which is good. I think the LMGs definitely need a nerfing. The TAC Eradicator, Pulamot 762, Bruin, for example, they were the best weapons in the game for long range, but now that they've been nerfed, and I will say those nerfs do look quite considerable, it just now means that the MTZ Interceptor is now the only option. A lot of people weren't running the MTZ Interceptor because, maybe they just didn't like it. Of course, it was a great gun, but it's not for everyone, so people preferred to use the LMGs instead. But now the LMGs aren't really a thing, so if anything, they've kind of buffed the MTZ Interceptor. It's pretty much the only thing that you can use now. No idea what they were thinking on this one, but that's pretty much all of the bugs. All the content creators just decided to just take the night off, and I can only assume that the casual audience didn't even waste their time. And who would blame them? It seems every time that there's a Warzone update, you always fear what's going to break next. It begs the question, how does this even happen? There's been so many times over the years, even since Verdansk, where they would release an update and the patch notes look all well and good. They do things that people ask for, and it looks like it's going to be a good update. You spend God knows how long downloading the update, and by the time you load onto the game, you just realize that, yes, they fix those stuff, but they've broke another, 10 different things. That tends to be the issue with these Warzone updates, and surely a billion-dollar company such as Activision has the means to be able to test their updates before they're released. That's what you'd assume, but it's very evident that none of these updates get tested, and that's pretty much the main issue. If you were around during Caldera released, first of all, my condolences, but that was even worse than this. If you were around at that time when that was released, everyone on console just simply could not play the game. Texture glitches plagued the map, crashing, stuttering, server issues, guns not working, and then just the overall look of the map. It was just a disaster. You'd assume that they learned from this, you know, a few years later, but here we are. We still have updates that just simply break the game. I think if you ran one single test game of this update, you would run into at least 50% of these issues that I've just spoke about. It's something that can be ironed out very easy. You can even just test it among the guys in the office. But instead, they've decided to release the update in whatever state this is, and it's just pushing everybody away. Warzone is in a very fragile state. It's nowhere near as big as it used to be, and some people even claim that the game's dying. Updates like this is just adding fuel to the fire, in my opinion. If you're trying to go on a redemption arc and trying to bring players back, you know, back in the day, everybody played Warzone, you know, and back in the lockdown days, pretty much every single person played Warzone, or at least tried it. And if you're trying to bring back those people, things like this is just not going to do it. This is like the first major update that we've had since the Christmas break, because the developers tend to release Warzone right before Christmas and then take the holidays off and leave the game as it is. This time the game was actually in a pretty okay state, but you know, if you think back to Cold War when the DMR meta was around, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you were probably playing the game around then when the DMR was meta. Now, if you remember this accurately, they released Warzone around December 16th after, you know, a couple delays. That's the Cold War Warzone I'm talking about, you know, the Cold War integration where the DMR actually got added. And it took them until January 13th to be able to nerf the DMR. That's a whole month that they took off for Christmas and not nerf the DMR. So not only was the DMR probably the most broken meta we've ever had, it lasted for a whole month. This time, I felt as though the game was actually in a pretty good state over Christmas. All they really needed to do was just nerf the interceptor, probably fix some footsteps, and, you know, adding in the new contract is cool as well. Multiplayer rank, that's also cool. We just needed, like, you know, a couple things fresh, nothing too crazy. And sure enough, they've returned, they've dropped this update, and the game has just gone 5 steps backwards. At the time I'm making this video, this is now 15 hours past release, and some of these issues have actually been fixed already. The fetching online profile loop has been fixed, as well as the loadout glitch. It also seems like they fixed the HMR9 from, you know, not unlocking. But if you already bought the blueprint out the store and got that max level, there was a bug where the attachments, I think it was the magazine attachments, wouldn't actually unlock. And now if you've already got that weapon maxed and you should have had them attachments, you aren't going to get them attachments until the next few days. So some would call that a fix. I don't know if I would personally, but slowly but surely they are getting there with this update. They are trying to make the game playable again, but don't let that distract you from the fact that this just should never happen in the first place. I want to reiterate that this is a $1 billion company. This is one of the biggest companies in the gaming industry, and it's very simple to just test an update before you release it. I'm seeing people on Twitter praising them for fixing these things quickly. I'm going to say that in quotes because I really don't think 15 hours is very quick in my opinion. I don't really agree with praising them for fixing this when it shouldn't even be broke in the first place. I understand mistakes happen, but this is a very, very avoidable mistake that I just can't sympathize with. For someone who is a content creator and a competitive player, I rely on this game for the majority of my income. And it's very concerning that this game may just be going downhill. Although I think Warzone is a fantastic game at its core, I just think there's so many bad updates, and I think they're kind of out of touch with what the game actually needs. And updates like this is just what's pushing people away. It's very worrying for people like me, and I'm sure the casual audience at this point are probably just looking at a Warzone update and just laughing at it. Nonetheless, if you haven't tried the Season 1 Reloaded update of Warzone, let me tell you, it's been a great experience, and I hope you enjoyed this video.